Hello everybody and welcome on into episode 3 of the New World Top 5 Fights. It's been a while since the last episode, so I'm really excited to bring you guys another episode. Of course, if you have an awesome clip and you think it would be perfect for a top 5 fight, you can send that to Kristofer at PvPnewWorld.com. Now let's get into these fights. Starting off with the first fight, we've got Deity Vengeance playing some bow spear, and the first player he manages to lure off the edge there into the spear stun, hits him with a couple pokes to finish him off, and then Deity goes into the field here to just kind of see what's shooting at him. It looks like a green player with the musket in the back there, and Deity switches to the bow, gets a nice shot off on him, but the enemy yellow player coming in with the great axe here, Deity forced to just kite back a little bit outside of the musket player's range, and he gets a nice stun off with the evade shot on the oncoming great axe player. The enemy player comes around the corner, Deity right away hits him with the light attack into the stagger shot off the penetrating shot, and there's the big succession of stuns from the spear. Deity gets a great read on the direction that guy rolls, and finishes him off right there. And here comes the enemy green player. The yellow player on the edge is just watching the show, and they just begin kind of trading shots here. Deity's trying to push closer to him, seeing the enemy player actually wasting his stam there. Deity goes for the pressure with the spear, forcing him to flesh out of that. There's the riposte. It's too late. The stun comes in, the second stun from the sweep, and Deity finishing him off with a nice bow shot. Moving on to the next clip, we've got Ambriel doing some 3v3s with spear and hatchet. And he's doing the best for his team here, putting damage into the enemy players. And there's a big smack from the enemy team. They all converge on one of the friendly players there. And just like that, Ambriel's got one teammate down. The second friendly player being brought down by the other two, while Ambriel trades with the other hatchet player there. And just escaping on low HP. But Ambriel comes back around the other corner, goes for this skewer, and hits the enemy player as he's trying to get a little bit of distance there, finishing him off. And now he's got the last two players in the arena left. Ambriel just kind of being patient here, doesn't want to expose himself to the range player. He is playing a melee build, and he just keeps hugging this pillar. I think this is a good call. Force the enemy players to come to a bit more favorable terrain. And he goes for the skewer to start. The enemy sword and shield player going in for that stun, and Ambriel just getting the dodge in time there. And he comes back around the corner. It looks like the enemy player actually blocking the vault kick there, and the spear player going very aggressive. Ambriel switching out to his hatchet. I believe he has the death save on cooldown, so a great move to go very offensive and quickly bring down the spear player. And there is the stun from the vault kick. Ambriel just going for as much damage with the hatchet as possible. The gap closer for the stagger to finish the enemy player off. Now, moving on to the next clip, we have got SparkySharky, and he's playing some Fire Staff and Rapier, probably my favorite weapon combo personally in this game. And he's playing some OPR. He quickly goes to confront these two players, gets a fantastic riposte off right away into the heavy attack, evade forward, and he brings down the first player there, gets another great riposte on the very aggressive hatchet player, and goes for a lot of pressure with the rapier, just kind of dancing around this guy, using his dodge a lot just to reposition behind them. And then he breaks a bit of distance here, switches out to the Fire Staff, starts feeding this guy fireballs, and the enemy player's hatchet passive saving him from the death there, but Sparky just backs up a little bit, goes for the riposte right through, and then downs the enemy player. This was actually from a bit of an older patch prior to when the changes to down happened in OPR. And Sparky sees another player come in through the door there. He keeps up his pressure with the Fire Staff. The enemy spear player putting out quite a bit of damage. There's a beautiful riposte again, just using the aggression from the opponents to get those reliable riposte counters. And then he hits him with the heavy attack. The enemy player, low HP, just kind of baited into that combo. And again, another enemy player coming in, throwing down gravity wells this time. It looks like two great axe players on top of him. And there's the enemy player with a healing staff, quickly healing up the great axes, and Sparky forced to just kind of retreat a little bit here, get a bit higher ground. Huge damage with his Fire Staff there, taking big chunks out of the one great axe player there, hits him with the heavy attack off of the riposte stun. Beautiful stuff. and then he drops down just to finish him off with the poke there. The Hatchet Great Axe player staying right on top of him. Sparky hits him with a bit of damage with the Fire Staff there, then goes for the burnout to stay right on top of him, and the enemy Great Axe player falling for the bait again. Sparky getting such a nice riposte, and the Great Axe player getting a lot of heals from the friendly healer, but it's not enough. Sparky with just fantastic aim on that Fire Staff and excellent pressure. And again, Sparky finds himself with more enemy players showing up. So he just feeds these guys fireballs from a distance, getting actually good damage into this light armor healer there. Sparky jumps down to try to go for the combo with the rapier. Unfortunately, he finds himself getting attacked very quickly from the enemy players, gets a good riposte to kind of counter it, and there's the fourth player entering the fight. Sparky doesn't want to give up the kill on this healer, though. There's the riposte into the flesh. Beautiful stuff, taking the healer down, and Sparky goes for the flesh again because he did get the really quick cooldown from getting the kill with it there, and then just retreats up to the top, goes for the burnout on the Fire Staff to try to go through this guy. And man, another enemy player entering the fight. He's got 4 guys on him again, but look at this huge combo. The enemy player going down, and Sparky ends up getting stuck in the terrain. A super unfortunate end to such a good fight. Now moving on to our next clip here, we have got SB3XQ, and he's actually hanging out in Reekwater at Siren Strand, the group area, looking for some flag players to hunt, and here he finds a group of green players. He gets the jump on them from behind, killing one player off, and then he jumps off the side of this thing just to kind of hide. They keep shooting at him, and look at this. He jumps down and grabs the ledge underneath the broken ship. One of the enemy players actually ends up falling off the edge there. It looks like he's trying to teleport out, and SB3 just jumps down, hits him right away with the Reap to pull him out of the teleport. The gravity well comes down. The enemy player going into his hatchet save there, but it's already been done. Too much damage, and he manages to take that player down. That's not the end of the fight. SB3 ends up moving back up towards where this group was. You can see it looks like the enemy player that he killed has come back to reinforce as well. And he goes back inside the same building, throws down the gravity well at the doorway, gets a good reap on that enemy player, unfortunately just missing the stun on the hammer there. And they end up going back to killing the mobs and doing their own thing. SB3 just being patient, wanting to catch this guy out alone, but this guy is paying attention. He misses the reap on him. There comes the gravity well as well, and SB3 managing to avoid it on the impact, and he goes for a big hammer stun on the door. All the enemy players actually being out of range there. I think the other guy would have been hit, but he was just behind the doorway there, and SB3 again forced to back up. The enemy player's putting a lot of pressure here, but he's playing it really smart. He's not overextending or being too aggressive here. Again, he gets caught with a succession of bad stuns, and right away he goes to a safe location. He can't get bombarded by ranged attacks, and 2 enemy players this time end up following him in here. And right away, the first player in, SB, goes for a bit of damage, hits him with the hammer stun. That guy ends up climbing up to the top of the box here. He's still taking damage at the top of the box. I think he's just trying to put himself in a corner where the mobs in particular won't aggro to him like that. And again, he's forced to break a bit of distance, finding himself pretty low HP here. He throws the gravity well down on the doorway, trying to keep as many players out as possible. And the one enemy player ends up coming in. SB3 being very aggressive with the Great Axe there, getting good damage into that guy. But again, he's just kind of finding himself taking a little bit too much pressure from this group. He backs up through them, going for the charge to just break distance. The enemy players catching up to him here, and SB3 throwing down a defensive gravity well to try to slow them down. And they continue to chase him up the stairs. He goes for the hammer stun. The enemy player actually just hitting the berserk there to break the stun right away. And again, SB3 taking a lot of pressure. He's forced to back up even further. And he again just resets at the next level. The enemy player's coming up the bridge. He manages to get a great gravity well, catching a lot of players in it. There is a huge stun on the hammer, and a big follow-up with the path there, finishing that player off, and he ends up falling off the edge, which will deal fall damage and kill him from the down status. And then SB3 getting right behind the enemy healer there, putting huge damage into him. And now the enemy group is in disarray. They're not really sure what to do. They start trying to back up. SB3 going very aggressive with the hammer stun now, and he follows it up with a huge heavy attack into the armor breaker, downing the green player. And it looks like the other green players are trying desperately to get get the res off, but all of the mobs just body blocking everybody, and SB3 manages to just slide past there, uses his gap closer to get right on top of the enemy green players again, and they hit him with a counter stun there. SB3 getting rushed by the mobs as well, but then he lands that hammer stun into his path there. The enemy player saved by the hatchet passive, and the other player there just getting down from SB3's attack as he tries to escape. And there's the gap closer to finish off the hatchet player. And SB3 trying to stay alive here as he gets hit by a huge succession of staggers. And he ends up going down and ending that great run. And finally, guys, for the last clip of the episode, we have got Donzo, and he is playing some Fire Staff and Rapier, and this is, again, a little bit of an old clip, but nonetheless, this is a really good clip, so I wanted to share it with you guys. He's got a lot of purple players on his tail here. They're chasing him across the water. It's in a very open area here, so Donzo is actually very exposed to enemy projectiles, and the bushes can kind of line of sight, but at this point, Donzo's just using his movement as best he can to avoid those ranged projectiles. The enemy players converging on him there. Donzo gets a great read on the riposte, goes for a backup there into the flesh, hits him with a huge fireball, and there's the incinerate. Donzo putting huge damage into everybody in the group there, downing one of the players, and he finishes him off with an excellently placed light attack from the Fire Staff. And Donzo again just backs up, breaks some distance, uses his movement to try to avoid as much ranged projectiles as possible, and heading towards this red cloud, definitely gonna help obstruct the enemy's vision at a distance. He tries to go for the burnout there. Unfortunately, the enemy Great Axe player pulling him out of it, and then he takes a lot of damage trying to put the damage in with the incinerate. I believe the enemy player had grit, but Donzo threw in some huge snipe fireballs into this guy, taking him down quite a bit of health. And he again just kites out, goes for a bit of movement away from the group, and then the burnout right through everybody again. He gets a nice riposte there. I believe he actually got touched by that ice shower, but he manages to stay on top of the enemy player, going for the flesh right away. And there's the incoming gravity well as Donzo lands the final hit to down the player, and a burnout through to finish him off. And it looks like he's got two enemy players left here. Donzo just waiting for him to come in aggressively. Gets that nice riposte on him. Goes for big damage on him. Unfortunately, Donzo taking a ton of damage himself from the enemy players spinning behind him there. And Donzo uses the burnout again to move through them. Very low HP here. He gets the potion. And now he's just going to try to finish off this enemy player. Goes for the incinerate. The enemy player falls right into the trap. And it looks like one more enemy player did come in here. And there comes a gravity well from him. Donzo goes for the gap close through. I believe he got hit by the Reap, and that's what ends up stopping his burnout there. But he still made a decent amount of distance with it. He gets great damage with that riposte combo. Donzo's so smooth transitioning between his different skills here, and he keeps the pressure on this enemy player. Hits him with a couple fireballs. The enemy just trying to escape. Donzo goes for the burnout, and that's going to be it. He finishes him off with the last shot there, and the last bit of the fight ends up getting cut off, but fantastic stuff from Donzo. Of course, there's a bonus clip for you guys, a massive group wipe brought to you by Tishy. Hope you guys enjoy it. A huge thank you and shout out to everybody who sent those clips in. If you want to check out any of the people featured in today's episode, you can find links to their channels down in the description below. And of course, if you have some awesome clips that you want to send in for the top 5, you can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. There's a link down below if you want to catch that live gameplay on Twitch. And of course, give me a follow on Twitter if you want to keep up to date with me. Check out my website, pvpnewworld.com. It's got written guides to all my builds, as well as a ton of information on the game. And I hope to be featuring some featured builds on there very soon for you guys too. This show is sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers that can give you better ping to your favorite games, especially if you have poor ping to start. There's a link down below for you guys, and it's free to try for the first month. And last but not least, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope to see you all next time, and have a great night, everybody.